Hey guys, so now it is basically day 4. So day 3 I did all the basic shaving and I did my first layer, and then I did 3 additional layers the next day, 3 layers yesterday. So I did like I think 6 or 7 layers, and this is now ready to be sanded down. So the finish looks really good, feels really nice, and we're gonna get into that. But real quick, just wanted to do another shout out. JJ, again from Woodside, and people over at Trace, Mr. Paulo, Miss Lisa, Natalia. I didn't get the chance to say goodbye to you, Natalia, because I wasn't signed up for work on Friday. So, came in, they're like, oh, you got to go home. So I didn't get a chance to say adios, but it was nice meeting you, Natalia. And then, of course, the usual crowd of people, shout out to Jessica Castellanos, Tall Drew, Short Drew, Tall Drew, the Wandering Tree, Zach Amir, and Alex and Christian. Yeah, you guys rock. All right, so with that said, we're going to sand this down. Oh, and one other side note. The bug spray, right? So I came out here to set up and do this, and there were some wasps crawling back inside the Rubbermaid. So apparently you have to spray it down like basically every day for like 2-3 days, because the scent has to like penetrate the area, and then it actually ends up repelling the wasps. But basically I came over there and they were crawling in there already. So there's like 2 or 3 of them crawling. Also, there might be a bunch of noise in the background for 2 reasons. 1, we got the trash guy coming by, which is inevitable. And 2, we got a bunch of crows in the area who were just fighting off a hawk. The crows are actually like really freaking aggressive. It's kind of surprising like how mean and aggressive they are. But yeah, the crows are really intense, and they're always like fighting. All right, let me get this resituated and I will be back in just a second. So my shadow is gonna kind of block some of this, so it's really bright out. So like the camera's gonna be high contrast because it's really bright and sunny out. And then like I'm standing over this, so my shadow is gonna partially block the body of the guitar, but bear with me. You should be able to see enough to know what's going on. So I'm going over with the heavier grit of sandpaper or steel wool Scotch-Brite stuff. It is buffing it a little bit, which is good and bad. I'm just doing a little bit with this, and then I'm going to work up to the fine grit, and all of the scratches that are in here are going to get worked out. Also, I'm going to see if I can wear a little bit of that out. Looks like that's just going to be there. So yeah, anyway, there's a lot of crows in this area, and they're always fighting. They're really goddamn mean, and that's because there's a bunch of hawks that live in the area. There's a couple of hillsides away from here that have this really big forested area, and the hawks hang out over there, basically behind one of the local middle schools, Arundel Middle School. And so the hawks hang out over there, and they basically like wait for the crows, and they get them. And then over at Carlmont High School, they have the big high school football field. And the funny thing about that, and it's actually like really clever, is that there are a lot of pigeons that live at that school. And like pigeons are kind of like the fast food of the animal kingdom. They're like not very good, and I don't think a lot of the birds, like particularly the predatory hawks, like eating pigeon. I haven't really noticed it too often. It's actually funny. I think they actually prefer to eat the crows. That's actually partly because the crows are so physically aggressive that the hawks like to kill and eat the crows, because it makes the murder of crows weaker. That's what you call a giant throng of crows, a murder of crows. It makes them weaker because they all like gang up. They all start screaming, and like that's how you know that there's a hawk in the area. They all start screaming, and then they'll all stop screaming, and only one of them will still be screaming. So like they all start because it's like they're warning each other there's a hawk, and then they all shut up except for the one that's got eyes on the hawk, and then they all swarm around the hawk and they start dive bombing it. And the hawks are bigger than the crow, so it's a little bit harder for them to get up in altitude, but once they're in altitude, they can stay up there longer because they have a bigger wingspan. So the thing is, like the hawks, they tend to fly a little bit low because they're hunting, and the crows come at them, and the crows are smaller, lighter, and faster at the mid-range altitude, and they navigate better as a group, and they start dive bombing the hawks. So yeah, they all gang up on the hawks like that. And my neighbor has a giant ass redwood tree, like just a big old redwood tree. It's got to be like damn near, I don't know, like 50 feet tall. It's ridiculously huge. So they got this big old redwood tree, and one time a couple years back, I kid you not, there was an eagle in that tree, like a fucking eagle, and it was eating a crow. The weirdest thing I'd ever seen, and if I remember correctly, it did have the white head, so that's why I think it was an eagle. And it's eating one of the crows, and there had to be like 40 of those crows, pissed off, screaming, flying around my neighbor's house, just screaming, full volume, like 40 crows, just screaming their faces off because this giant eagle, whatever, had eaten one of their friends. So I actually, as funny as it is, I actually like pigeons more than crows because the crows are fucking obnoxious. And I like hawks a lot. They do a good job of like controlling the pests in the area, and I don't like the fact that the crows are so goddamn mean to the hawks. Even though the hawks sometimes eat the crows, so I understand why they're mean. But yeah, I don't know. I like birds a lot. I think they're kind of cool. The whole like human obsession with flight. You know, it's one of those things that captures my imagination. Maybe in another lifetime I would have been a pilot or something. But I'm a musician and an artist, and that suits me just fine. So now I'm just hitting this. I'm trying to buff it out, get all of the scratches that I put in there out. That's really what I'm trying to do right now, is just get it to look kind of smooth. God damn, the sun is baking the crap out of me. I put a ton of sunblock on before I came out here, and I still feel it baking me. So I'm gonna get this done, and I'm gonna bring this guitar in, and we are gonna chill out because today I can already tell today's gonna be a scorcher. So we are gonna get this done and go inside, and then tonight we will work on the flying V, and I will talk to you guys about that. Okay, I gotta do some work on the neck now. Gotta wet sand the neck. Then I have a little bit of steel wool that I'll throw down on here. But this is, for the most part, said and done. So let's just get this going. Everything all good? Looks like everything's all good. It's so hard to see out here. Like, I try and look at like my audio recorder to make sure it's still going. I try and check on the camera to make sure it's still going. And like, Jesus Christ, it's so bright out. Right, hang on a second, I'm going to adjust the camera. I'm still too tall for this camera. Need a bigger tripod. It is literally as high as that tripod gets to stand back. So basically what I'm doing now is I'm just dipping the sanding paper in a bowl of water, and I'm just working it out. Just got to remember to go in one direction. Sometimes I'll zone out and I'll forget to go in one direction, but this is wet sanding paper. It's not going to really take a whole lot off. Wet sanding paper is really designed to just take the finish off, the outermost layer, and like buff whatever finish is there. It basically like smoothens things out and blends things together. That's really the purpose of it. If I was doing this perfectly perfect, I'd have 2000 grit wet sanding, but I'm just gonna hit this with the steel wool because I don't think I have the 2000 grit anymore. So let's see. Let us see. Let us see. I think this is really it. I think that's going to be it. I think that's good. I'm going to say that this guitar is done. It is now time to clean it up and restring it up and try shredding on it. Yeah, man. Huh. That's weird right there. Hang on a second. That's like a big old splotch of glue right there. I don't like that. Hang on. I'm going to hit that with the actual sanding block. See, that's the thing I don't like about Gibson is like their quality kind of went down at one point. And that's largely due to the fact that they stopped giving a shit. Yep. At their factories. So the glue that was binding this part of the fretboard kind of seeped out. I don't know if that's entirely their fault or not. I'm willing to assume it is because they are the manufacturer. Every once in a while though, you'll get like a weird guitar and a weird piece of wood that doesn't want to cooperate. But, you know, because it is Gibson and they're supposed to be expert craftsmen, they're supposed to make these damn things perfect. There's like a couple of problems with this. Well, that's better. Okay. Yeah, that was a weird little glue spot. So every once in a while the glue will stick out from in between the fretboard and the neck, especially when you're doing a sanding project. I guess that part of it is my fault because like the guys didn't, when they made this guitar, they didn't think like, oh, somebody's gonna shave down the neck. But like, I mean, still, if you're building a really good guitar, that shouldn't happen. You shouldn't have a spot where the glue kind of like is thicker. And I mean, sometimes the wood grain is a little bit weird and glue can kind of like pocket up in a spot of wood grain, especially along a seam, which is what basically happened there. And, you know, I was able to smoothen it out and buff it. Now it feels much better. I can't feel it anymore, which is good. But if you're making a really good guitar in the first place, you shouldn't even have that problem. Okay, now that feels perfect. All right. See, so you just test it out until it feels good, and then when it feels good, you stop. And if you find a rough spot, just, you know, reapproach it with a slightly heavier sanding block. Again, these are really good, these sanding blocks, because they mold around the edge of something, and they can really like take like a little corner off, and you can really like put pressure on it and dig that area out. And then you can very easily taper it back into the rest of the neck and make it feel like it fits. And there's like a slight light spot where I scratched the excess glue off and where a little bit of the finish came off. Funny how that happened. Feels like glass though. Let me get the yeah, so here is my last little chunk of steel wool. I like steel wool. Some people hate steel wool because they think it gets stuck in the fibers. It can get stuck in the wood fibers if you're not, you know, careful with it. Obviously, if you're using really porous finish, it could potentially get stuck in there. In this case, because it is sealed with oil, that's very unlikely. Steel wool is really good at taking the edge off of a finish. Wow, that is really rough right there. That's got to get cleaned up. Hang on. That front part came out really, really rough. I don't know why. Some gunk on there. Okay, hang on. crap on this. I want to get inside and get out of the sun, but I don't want to do this wrong, so I will stand outside. Fuck the sun. I will stand outside and make sure this is perfect before I go inside and wait until the afternoon. I want to make sure this is good. If you're going to do something, do it right. Okay, that's good. Huh. That is actually a severe problem. Shit. So I wore off the corner of the finish right there because there was a bunch of crap on it and I had to get that off. And now I'm running into an issue where I might have to put another layer of oil on this. Even though I really don't want to, I might have to. That's why you got to take your time with this. Even though I don't want to put another layer of oil on this, I might have to do that on the front. Looks like the front didn't dry very well. Or it looks like it dried, but so I had the guitar on its belly, so the back was face up because that was the biggest area getting exposed to the finish. And it looks like what happened is that finish didn't really settle on the front side very well. So I am going to have to put a few layers of finish right here. So I'm going to kind of buff this out, and because you want to cover everything that's exposed, because if you don't, it's going to rot. It's like you can't half-ass it and say, oh well, you know, that part I'm not going to cover. It's like the whole thing or nothing. And I know that that's a real like stickler kind of way of doing things, but you really have to be like that because this is your instrument after all, and you do want to take care of it. Okay, I'm getting rid of that at least. So what it looks like is the finish just didn't quite level very well on the front side, which I guess doesn't surprise me because I was laying it on its back. So I guess that was a mistake on my part. Okay, that actually looks okay. So, no, actually it's not. There's still a couple of pieces of finish I gotta buff off. Damn, I gotta get this off. Yeah, pain in the ass. Okay, there we go. Yep. Okay, it's ready. So I'll show you what I'm talking about. Just give me a second. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. So I'm going to kind of point at it, but this whole edge right along here had an issue where this whole edge, and it's different because right here it's darker, and you can see that it's a little bit more red because there's some finish on it, and then this is very light, and that's unfinished. So what could happen is, let's say like moisture gets in here, moisture could get into here and then rot through the guitar. So you have to seal the whole thing. So this whole edge has to get resealed with the oil. So I'm gonna go get the oil and go do that right now. So what I was doing is I was buffing out the edge to make a very clear line of where it needs to be covered. So I'm gonna just do this whole thing again. I might have to do it twice. So I'll actually probably have to do 3 coats today. Do one right now, one in the afternoon, and one at night. and then I will call this guitar finished. And basically while I'm doing the one at night, I'm going to set up to do the Flying V. So you guys will see that. And just to let you know, that right there is the Flying V that I will be working on. So we're going to do the same sort of project on this guy, but we're going to shave this side of the neck. That's all going to get shaved off on that one. No tummy cut on that, just this side. All right, thanks for watching, guys.